Dr. Rima, you are live.
Welcome to the Dr. Rima Truth Reports. I'm Rima E. Labo, MD. I am the Medical Director of the Natural Solutions Foundation. And with me, as always, my co-host and co-trustee, Ralph Fusatola, JD. Good evening, Ralph.
Good evening, Dr. Rima.
And how are you this evening?
Oh, I'm doing fine. We're actually having some beautiful, almost summer weather here in North Jersey. It's always an exciting time of year. Our garden is beginning to grow a bit. It's glowing a little bit. Not all of the Fukushima monsters are invading California as Godzilla is doing on the 3D movie that's going all around right now. Some of these invaders are little tiny particles coming from Fukushima. And
some of these invaders are little tiny particles that are coming from your local nuclear plants, and they are not being talked about, and we'll have more to say about that. Turns out that Fukushima is just the tip of the glowing iceberg, and let me give you a little hint of what's going on. The internationally agreed upon level at which populations should be evacuated because their homes and stores and schools and farms and playgrounds and parks are too radioactive for them to stay there is agreed upon internationally, as I said, to be 300 nanosieverts per hour, which calculates out to about 43 sieverts of exposure, which is pretty close to an instantly deadly dose. It's very, very high, 300 nanosieverts per hour. Miami has been above 400 nanosieverts for more than a year, steadily, without cease. Fresno, California has been above 300 nanosieverts for a year. There are places in the United States that have been above 350 to 400 nanosieverts for 4 years. Nuclear reactors leak, my friends. Nuclear reactors always leak. Turkey Point near Miami is the source of more than 400 nanosieverts per hour, day in, day out, for every man, woman, child, fish, fly, frog in the Miami area. And if you think that your government doesn't know about this, try again. Your government sings a mantra of lies called no harm to human health in the key of be sick, be very sick. This is beyond a crime against humanity. This is depopulation. This is being in thrall of the nuclear mafia, and this must stop. Fukushima is just one more nail in the coffin. Whose coffin? Your coffin, your child's coffin, your future's coffin, and it has to stop. So that's just a little hint of things to come. Now, what can you do about it? There are a couple of things you can do about it. If you go to the link that Ralph is going to give you, you'll be able to download General Bert's new book on Fukushima. For those of you who don't know who General Bert is, he is General Albert M. Stubblebine III, U.S. Army retired. He is the president of the Natural Solutions Foundation, and he's just written a new book on Fukushima and what it means, what's going on, what's real, what we know, what we don't know. And at the end of that book, he asked me to write a guide to radioprotective nutrition. There are things that we can do, and among the things that we can do, that book, by the way, is free, and you'll be able to download it at the link that Ralph's going to give you as soon as I stop talking, which is not quite yet. And I'm not quite there yet. One of the things you can do is make sure that you have and are using CBD. CBD, that's cannabidiol, which is the non-psychoactive part of the industrial hemp plant. CBD is radioprotective, and you can also make sure. I happen to suggest the organic chocolate bars with 60 milligrams of CBD, but you can have it in chewing gum, you can have it in capsules, you can have it as an oil, you can have it any way you like it. This is not nutritional hemp. This is health promoting CBD rich hemp oil. And if you go to tinyurl.com/CBD, that's Charlie Bravo Delta, CBD hemp oil, you will come to our store where you can get this. And while you're at the store, you need something to protect the immune system that's being destroyed by the radiation. And that something is silver sol, nano silver. You need nano silver because it kills every dangerous bacterium, virus, or mycoplasma or parasite that your immune system can't deal with, and it gives your immune system the boost that it needs to get you past what the radiation is doing. If you live in the United States, you are being exposed to dangerous levels of radiation, plus what Fukushima brings you. And we'll be dealing with this more, so stay tuned and make sure that you download General Bird's book. Can you give the tiny URL?
Sure can. Yep, let me do that. I've put that up on the screen for the permanent archive. By the way, folks, remember our permanent archives, in addition to being on Revolution Radio, which is www.freedomslips.com, is also at our YouTube channel. Of course, that's youtube.com/natural solutions. And you can find the archives of these programs there. You'll see a video element in those archives as well. Now, the video element now shows the link, and the link is one of our tiny URLs. It's again tinyurl.com/Fukushima fire. Fukushima fire, because this latest estimate of situation from General Burt was, if you will, inspired by the latest fire in Fukushima, which happened about 10 days ago or so, and which we've widely reported on. We called the world's attention to this because we've been working closely with Ambassador Murata, the conscience of Fukushima from Japan, and he has kept us very closely informed of developments. And of course, it is Murata who's been calling for what he calls honorable retreat from the 2020 Olympics, because even by 2020, Tokyo will not be safe for athletes, nor will much of else the rest of Japan.
Nor will it be safe for the workers, the 3,000 workers or so who will come to Tokyo to build the stadia and the housing and all the special things that the Olympics requires, nor for the coaches and the parents and the friends and the children who will come. So it's not just the athletes, it's everybody.
Yes.
Because what we see in Tokyo is a cataclysmic failure of responsibility on the part of the same governmental structure. This one happens to speak Japanese, but it's the same irresponsible globalist government that says no harm to human health, no harm to human health, at the same time that Prime Minister Abe is trying to restart the nuclear plants in Japan. And I will remind you that all of them are leaking. It's just that Fukushima is leaking worse. A couple of months after Fukushima, there was a plutonium cache fire about 50 kilometers from Fukushima at another nuclear station. There's no safe nuclear station. In New Mexico, the WIPP underground storage site for Los Alamos plutonium weapons grade garbage is leaking and exploding right now, even as we speak. You definitely want to have nuclear protection, radiation protection, because ionizing radiation is disastrous. Oh, I want to say one thing before we introduce our guest who's going to be talking about another type of radiation, which is the more familiar one that we think about, the one that comes from cell phones, from cordless telephones, from Wi-Fi, tablets, smart meters, and so on. That's electromagnetic frequency. Somebody is rattling something. I don't know whether
Nope.
that's Ralph or Orem, but it is coming through. So there are several types of radiation. None of them is good for you, and we'll be talking about EMF radiation in a moment. Before we do that, I want to give you a little update on the pseudoscience of vaccines. We all know that we're being held accountable, we unvaccinated people, we monstrous parents who don't vaccinate our children and our grandchildren, we people who believe in science as a reproducible, fact-based activity rather than a matter of belief. And so we turn away from vaccines and we say, are you out of your mind? But the Mayo Clinic, not exactly a bastion of liberal alternative ideas, the Mayo Clinic has published a report saying measles is being spread by vaccinated people, and measles is occurring in fully vaccinated people, and measles has morphed into something more dangerous because people who get it are vaccinated, and it's changed the nature of the vaccine.
Ooh, GMO diseases.
Absolutely, but viruses reassort and become more, become different. Sometimes they can become more dangerous and deadly in the body. They've said the measles vaccine, like other vaccines, has failed. The measles vaccine has failed, which is kind of what we've been saying. And oh, by the way, what is their solution? New vaccines. Well, okay, they're pretty deadhead, but at least they got the idea that the measles vaccine has failed. And when your doctor says, are you aware that you are endangering other people by not vaccinating your child? You whip out this article and you say, no, sir, I am not, or no, madam, I am not aware of that. You are not aware of the fact that vaccines are now being determined to have failed. And that is the reality. That is not belief. That is not religion of vaccinology. That is fact, and that is science. Vaccines have failed, and they are failing at an ever-increasing rate.
And indeed, what we can do, folks, to let decision makers know how we feel, that we are proud anti-vaxxers, we can go to one of our action items, one of those web forms we set up and pay for every month, to allow you to send your messages to decision makers. This one is another one of our tiny URLs, tinyurl.com/vaccine free. Vaccine free will take you to a link, give you opportunity to let the decision makers know that you are a proud anti-vaxxer and will not accept the dictates of people who use pseudoscience to pursue a depopulation agenda.
Precisely. At best, they're idiots who are misinformed, and then it goes downhill from there. Do you have any other health freedom news of the week, Ralph?
Well, Congress has been leaving us alone for a little while, so we seem to be okay at this moment.
Right.
And, the big news of the week is maybe not health related directly, but only indirectly, and that is that the European Union's central bank, there are so many central banks floating around, we can't keep them straight, but this is the EU central bank, today decided to basically reduce all interest rates that it charges other banks, the so-called commercial banks, down to basically zero, and at the same time start charging banks interest on money the banks deposit with the central bank. Instead of the central bank paying for deposits, it's charging to hold money for people, and that's supposedly going to encourage banks to loan money. Well, of course, it's going to create the wildest bubble you've ever seen on the way to hyperinflation. I believe that the last restraint, zero interest rates, and the penalty if you don't loan that money out, banksters. The politicians have spoken. The banksters will do what is profitable, which is pass out mountains of new euros, and the euro will collapse even faster than the dollar is collapsing. Although we know that the manipulators are really good at what they do. For example, the price of gold is $1,245 an ounce right now, which is extraordinarily low, considering the state of the money supply. So that, I think, is a big piece of news. Of course, there's a lot of other news going on made to distract people from the important things, such as GMOs and Fukushima and vaccines. All of these things that are coming together in a way that can only be called a catastrophe, a cataclysm, a sort of geoengineering catastrophe, as General Burt has been warning us recently. By geoengineering, he's now including not just chemtrails, but what's happening, for example, with nuclear power. Isn't spreading hundreds and hundreds of nuclear reactors around this planet on fault lines, because nuclear reactors need to be near rivers, and rivers run along fault lines. Isn't that a type of geoengineering? Isn't growing GMO crops, the giant monoculture crops that take up thousands of square miles with the same GMO cultivars, isn't that a type of geoengineering? So it all adds up, and it leads to, of course, Dr. Rima, what you've identified, genome disruption syndrome.
Yes, and if you want another free book, why do we have that echo suddenly?
Oh, no.
If you want another free book about this particular thing, that is genome disruption, go to G, that's genome, D, that's disruption, S, syndrome, gds.com.
No, actually, Dr. Rima, it's gds-therapy.com.
And download the free book there on how your genes are being disrupted, how to find out if you have a syndrome that I've named GDS, genome disruption syndrome, and what to do about it. That's another free service from the Natural Solutions Foundation. Now, I very much want to get to our guest. Orrin Miller is a fascinating person. I know you're going to be truly enlivened and enlightened by his presentation with us this evening. But before we do, I want to give you yet one more link. And that is, if you're sitting here thinking, what do I do to protect my retirement? What do I do to protect my assets? What do I do to stop this depopulation? Then you really want to go to fundfornaturalsolutions.org. That's a private equity fund that the Natural Solutions Foundation has created to answer just those questions, to carry out projects that make a difference, that do what you believe in, and protect your assets by offshoring them and putting them to work to make the world a much, much safer and better place. And that's so important. So it's fund, F-U-N-D, for naturalsolutions.org. Go there, take a look, find out more, become involved in not only protecting your assets, but also protecting the planet.